The purpose of this presentation is to explain the pre-qualification process as it applies to Ports of Indiana and, in a larger sense, the state of Indiana as a whole. Ports of Indiana's bid process is executed in accordance with Indiana law, which means that any state contract valued at more than $150,000, anyone that wants to bid on that state contract must be pre-qualified with the state of Indiana in order to bid. Pre-qualification is not handled by Ports of Indiana, by the Indiana Department of Transportation or the Indiana Department of Administration, depending on the type of work that you're seeking. Any company performing roadwork projects must be pre-qualified with INDOT, the Department of Transportation. INDOT states that a contractor must be qualified by INDOT before doing any work on a public works project that is construction, improvement, alteration, repair, or maintenance of a highway, street, road, or alleyway. So any road work construction or any road work consulting that is done, such as engineering, design, traffic pattern studies, any of that work, the individuals that are going to bid on those contracts must be pre-qualified with INDOT. Prospective bidders must also be pre-qualified prior to bidding on state contracts. The pre-qualification process takes a little bit of time, and at least for Ports of Indiana, our invitation to bid postings are only up for statutorily required 2 weeks. For larger projects, we leave them up longer than that, but it takes a lot longer than that to get pre-qualified. So if you want to bid for any projects for Ports of Indiana, you really should get pre-qualified before you try to apply for any bids. I'm going to go through both the IDOA and the INDOT pre-qualification process, and then break the steps down a little bit. So first we'll deal with IDOA. So the first thing you would have to do is complete an electronic application using the Department of Public Works Contractor Pre-Qualification application. This is what their pre-qualification screen looks like. I've given you a link to all of the systems and some helpful documents so that you can go directly into the systems without having to search for them on their website. They are going to be in the PowerPoint presentation that will accompany this presentation itself. So this is the accessindiana.gov Department of Public Works Contractor Pre-Qualification application. You simply log in to begin an application, and it is a wizard, so it will walk you through everything. So you don't need to have any kind of prior knowledge of their system. It's pretty self-explanatory. Step 2, once you have submitted your application, the Department of Public Works will perform a review and verification. They will go through all of your information to ensure that it's correct, to ensure that it's complete, and if they have any questions, they will reach out to you to get clarification or to request additional information. There is a time limit on your response, so just know that if you do not respond to them in the correct amount of time, they will just deny your application. Step 3, once the Public Works Certification Board receives the information from the Department of Public Works, they meet monthly to approve or deny the applications. They haven't had a few monthly meetings recently, but they are going to start doing that again. There is a meeting this month, the month of March. So the Public Works Certification Board rubber stamps those during the meeting after all of the review and verification has already happened. Step 4, the Department of Public Works issues qualification certificate. These are valid for 27 months. And then step 5, certified entities must request renewal prior to their certificate expiration. The Department of Public Works is not going to let you know that your certificate is about to expire. You need to keep track of when you have applied for it and when you need to renew it. You also must submit a financial update every year. So even though the certificate is valid for 27 months, they want to know that your business is still financially stable and still in the same financial stability that it was when you applied for your certificate. The application requirements for IDOA are as follows. They are requesting general business information. They want to know all of the names of your business, any DBAs. They want to know how long your business has been around. They want to know the names of any of your officials, any of your representatives, anyone that they need to contact that is part of your business. They're also going to ask you general tax information like your FEIN and other information like that. They also require a letter of surety confirmation. They want to have some financial and insurance information that lets them know that you are capable of handling the types of projects that you are requesting. They would like a list of 5 projects completed in the last 5 years. They want to know that you have the proficiency in the categories you are requesting by having a history of projects completed. Finally, they want to know all of the work category codes that represent the types of work that your business does. To get into the work category codes a little bit more specifically, these correspond to the classification of work that your business performs. They can be found on our POI bid prequalification site, and these are the ones that we use most often. So on our website, we have a section for bid prequalification that goes into the IDOA and NDOT requirements, but it also lists for IDOA the categories that we prefer. So for instance, general contractors have specific codes, and then specialty trade contractors have their own codes as well. I'd like to point out one that we have quite a bit of issue finding, which is dredging. We don't have a lot of individuals that apply for our projects that have a dredging pre-qualification. An example of how you would decide what your work codes are. The general contractor code is 1542. So a general contractor might do carpentry work on their own jobs, but they wouldn't otherwise seek just carpentry jobs because they're a general contractor. Whereas there is a carpentry code, and that is 1751. That is for just carpentry work. So if you were a general contractor, you wouldn't have to select carpentry code 1751 or any of the other special trade codes because they would not certify you for those codes. It doesn't prevent your firm from doing carpentry work on state projects, but it falls under that general contractor code 1542. Moving on to NDOT prequalification. NDOT has separate processes for their consultants and for their contractors. So we'll start with consultants. They have an extra step. So the first step is to complete new business enrollment in the ITAP system. That is the NDOT Technical Application Pathway system. When you click on the ITAP system, it's going to take you to Access Indiana. Anyone that does business with the state of Indiana, being it a business entity or an actual individual entity, you really should have an Access Indiana account to access any of the systems or any of the information from those agencies. So it's very easy to get an Access Indiana account. You simply just click sign up. In this instance, I already have one. Bear with me. Since I have an Access Indiana account, it skipped my dashboard and went straight to the application that I was seeking to enter, which was the ITAP application. So this is what ITAP looks like. This is their main landing page. And you need to request a new business here. That would be the first step for you to do. Once you request a new business, then you can complete the remaining steps for the process for a consultant. I will also point out that their quick start guide is here in the action links as well as track request status. I have given a link directly to the quick start guide in my PowerPoint presentation, but this is another area where that quick start guide is located for easy access. So once you've completed a new business enrollment in ITAP, you also have to complete an initial business registration in the Professional Services Contracting System, which is also located within ITAP. Once you have an ITAP new business enrollment, then they will allow you to submit an initial business registration in that section of ITAP. Once you've completed step 1, you then need to submit an initial pre-qualification application in the professional services contracting system. From there, it mirrors the IDOA process. INDOT will perform application review and verification. Again, they want to ensure that your information is complete and accurate. They too will reach out if they have any questions or if they need additional information. They also have timelines for returning the information. And if you don't return the information within the timeline stated, they can and will reject your application. Once INDOT performs their application and it goes through, all the way through their process, they also have a committee. Theirs is called the Pre-Qualification Committee, and they too have monthly meetings. This is where their committee will rubber stamp or officially deny any of the pre-qualification applications that have been received. The INDOT qualification certificate is only valid for 16 months. INDOT also requires yearly financial update. I think they give you the additional months in order for you to go ahead and request your renewal of your certificate. It takes a while for you to get INDOT pre-certified or pre-qualified. So I think the extra time just allows you to have a little leeway. INDOT will also not tell you that you're coming up for renewal. They just expect you to know when you submitted your application and that you need to submit a renewal. There is a different process for contractors. It starts the same way. You complete a new business enrollment in ITAP, and that's where it sort of differs. So you don't have to submit anything in the professional services contracting system. You submit a contractor pre-qualification application directly in ITAP. Then it follows the same process that it does for consultants. They perform their application review and verification. The pre-qualification committee meets and approves or denies applications. INDOT will issue the qualification certificate. It too is valid for 16 months. And a certified entity must request renewal prior to expiration, along with a yearly financial update. INDOT application requirements are very similar to IDOA's. They are going to want general business information. Again, this is name, addresses, doing business as, any of your elected officials or representatives for your business. They want to know financial information. This is different based on the kinds of contracts that you're going to bid on and the kinds of work that you perform. There are many different levels of financial information, and INDOT will let you know which level they require based on what you input into their system. There is also the financial information in the help guides that I have attached at the end of this presentation that I will be going through that will explain some of the financial requirements before you go ahead and fill out your pre-qualification application so that you can get all of your information together before you start the process. INDOT also requires work type codes. IDOA calls them work category. INDOT calls them work type codes. Finally, they require proof of licensure or certification if necessary. For example, if you are trying to do asbestos remediation or anything like that that requires specific licensure from the state of Indiana or federally, they want proof that you have that licensure or that certificate while you're applying for the pre-qualification and not after. So much like the process itself, the work type codes are split between consultants and contractors. Again, it corresponds to the classification of work your business performs. So for consultants, they have detailed requirements and the codes themselves, which can be found in the INDOT CPQ manual. So the INDOT CPQ manual explains the whole process for pre-qualification. It gives you all the guidelines. It gives you general pre-qualification application information. And then it finally goes into the different types of categories. So I'm going to find traffic data and collection. So the code itself for traffic data collection would be 2.1. It gives you general information about what they mean by traffic data collection, and then it goes into the requirements. It tells you how many individuals must be working for your company that meet all of the requirements. It tells you any licensure or certifications, education, experience requirements. It will go into what equipment that your company has to own or lease in order to be qualified for this. It talks about the submittal requirements. So this is where it goes into what specific projects you should have proficiency in. And some of the other ones, it goes into what kind of financial information that you need to submit based on the kind of work that they want you to do. So that is the CPQ manual. I also have a link here for contractors. Their detailed requirements and work type codes can be found in the INDOT Grouped Work Type Code document. So this document just gives basic information about the pre-qualification work types, and then it starts to go into the alphanumeric codes. So for instance, heavy grading has an alpha code of CA, and then underneath of it, blasting would have a numeric code of 0049. I will point out that INDOT also has a code for dredging. So you could be both IDOA and INDOT pre-qualified to do dredging work, but it's not required for Ports of Indiana to be certified with both, or pre-qualified, I mean, with both. You would only have to necessarily go through one or the other, and it takes a lot less time to go through IDOA's process. So just something to think about. So this is the group work type code document. For both IDOA and INDOT, you can select multiple work type codes. I would strongly encourage people to select the codes at the same time that they think that they're going to be needing, and that way they won't have to do multiple applications. You can submit one application with multiple codes, especially for those that are not general contractors. As previously mentioned, this is the list of the helpful links that I have included in this PowerPoint presentation to just kind of give anyone that needs a little help additional information. So the first site is the IDOA pre-qualification site. This will go directly to IDOA's website for contractors and subcontractors. This has a link to their pre-qualification application, the same link that I put in the actual PowerPoint presentation itself, and that is on our website. And then this also has a list of pre-qualified contractors. You can search by region, area, you can search by the actual company's name. So if you wanted to see what other companies that do similar work to you, what they're pre-qualified for, you can actually pull up their name and it'll tell you that information online. The application instructions for the IDOA process. So this is the application instructions for Indiana Department of Administration Public Works. So it goes through step by step, screen by screen, how to apply to get a new account with them, how to go through their entire process. It is a really good guide. It has a lot of information in it, and it also contains some contacts if you get stuck or if the system isn't doing what it should be doing. So this is an invaluable tool if you need a user guide while you're trying to apply, especially for the first time. For INDOT, I have a link to their pre-qualification site. This is their Doing Business with INDOT page. It is split between contractor pre-qual and consultant pre-qual. It has a lot of good information, a lot of links on it. So for the contractors, it lists the requirements for being a contractor. It has some webinars, it has some user guides, it has some walkthroughs, some FAQs, but it too has a list for the pre-qualified contractors. And then going back to doing business for the consultants, it has the exact same thing. So you can go and see their consultant pre-qualification. It has their quick start guides, their CPQ manuals, and then it also has a list of INDOT pre-qualified consultant firms. This is the ITAP instructions. So again, this is a user guide that walks you through the system step by step, screen by screen for the NDOT technical application pathway. It has a lot of really good information. It starts with FAQs, which can be very helpful, but then it also goes step by step, screen by screen, starting with creating an Access Indiana account, how to do all of that, logging in, and then this is what the Access Indiana dashboard looks like for someone who has not yet selected any of the services. So this is ITAP, and that's what you would select to see the ITAP pop up on your dashboard. It goes through, once you get through ITAP, it goes through the rest of the process for creating and requesting a new business, and then for pre-qualification. The Contractor Prequalification CPQ User Guide. This is another really handy document that will, again, once you log into ITAP and you click Contractor Prequalification, this walks you through the contractor prequalification application process, step by step, screen by screen. It also at the bottom has contacts with NDOT if you get stuck or if the system isn't responding the way it should be. And finally, the Professional Services Contracting System Manual. So this is a small PowerPoint presentation that they put together that just walks you through the different pieces of the Professional Services Contracting System that's housed within the ITAP application. And finally, if the helpful links were not as helpful as I thought they would be, I have given you a list of contacts. For IDOA, you can contact Tracy Cross, who is the Certification Board Secretary. She is extremely knowledgeable about all things certification. If she does not know someone, she knows who to ask. With NDOT, the individuals listed here are listed on their website as well as in their user guides. So these individuals are who you would contact if you are having issues with the system, the pre-qualification system, questions about their pre-qualification process or their pre-qualification system, or you just have something that you're kind of stuck with. And finally, with Ports of Indiana, you can contact me, Leah Vale, the Director of Program Management. That is my website. That is my email, and I would be happy to answer any and all questions or do some research for you if I do not have the answer readily available. Directly underneath my name is Julie Petrie. She is the Director of Project Delivery at Ports of Indiana. She can be reached at bids@portsofindiana.com. The good thing about the bids email is that I also have access to that, so if Julie is out or doesn't see something, I can also respond to emails that are sent through that method as well. Thank you for taking the time to watch our pre-qualification presentation. I hope it was informative, and Ports of Indiana looks forward to doing business with you all in the future. Thank you.